And growing questions over the political impact of whatever the FBI reveals to the House Oversight Committee leaders today, of course, is bubbling to the surface. Chris Hahn is a NewsNation political analyst and was a senior aide to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and Cal Thomas, a syndicated columnist and journalist. Okay, boys, let's have fun with this one. I know, first of all, Cal, I got to make sure to mention your book, A Watchman in the Night, What I've Seen Over 50 Years of Reporting on America. That's out now. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Chris, can Democrats keep brushing off of these questions and these concerns surrounding then Vice President Biden when they've been so adamant about investigating former President Trump?
Yes, because it's a tit for tat, and the voters aren't buying it. And quite frankly, Republicans have given up the ghost on this. Grassley was on TV last week. He basically said he doesn't care what the document says and that he's already seen it. That was his own words on Fox News just on Thursday. They don't really care. They're just trying to get the president's numbers down and trying to paint him with the same brush that Donald Trump has been deservedly painted with. It's not working with the voters. And quite frankly, Republicans got to make up their mind. Is Joe Biden this doddering old man who really can't figure his way out of anything? Or is he a criminal mastermind? Which is it? Because they changed their mind on this hour by hour, and the American people have noticed, which is why they fell so horribly in the midterms last year.
I don't know if anybody in the Republican Party thinks that the former president is this criminal mastermind. The other part you said, I think, is fair of both Democrats and Republicans at different times. But, Cal, are voters really not buying this? I mean, do House Republicans have any there, or is this just petty?
It's the summertime, and people are focused on vacations, gas prices, going to the beach, graduations, and other things. So I think this is just an initial volley, but there's a way to fix this very quickly. The FBI's trust level has fallen greatly in recent years. Back in the day when there was a show called The FBI Story on television starring Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., FBI agents were painted as patriotic, God-fearing Americans. But when the documents came out that J. Edgar Hoover was wiretapping people like Martin Luther King Jr. and others who were, according to him, thought to have communist ties or be communists themselves, the credibility of the FBI began to decline. And I think with this business about Trump and Peter Strzok and his girlfriend there guaranteeing that the 2016 election would not be won by Trump, it goes down even further. Here's the way to solve the problem very quickly. The name of the whistleblower has been redacted. Get the whistleblower behind doors, under oath, and let's see what he or she has discovered. Verify the information. If it's true, move forward. If it's not, get rid of it. Anybody can make an allegation against anybody, and what we need to see is actual proof.
Yeah, and Chris, Cal brings up a really good point. This may not have anything to do with President Biden or then Vice President Biden. This FBI situation has a lot of Americans on edge. How does that turn out after all of this back and forth?
I think, look, both parties have reasons to be upset about the FBI. I, for one, do not believe that Donald Trump would have won in 2016 had Jim Comey not released that letter 10 days before the election. And I think that's a big, dark spot on the FBI. I understand why he felt he needed to do it, but quite frankly, it really did impact the election. But beyond that, I have seen no evidence that the FBI over the last 6 years has been playing in the political arena. And I think the fact that they are trying to protect a confidential informant whose life may be endangered, if you believe what they say, by releasing this information, then let's let them do that. They have the opportunity in Congress to view these documents. They will also, I believe, have the opportunity to interview the witness. I believe they should. But quite frankly, again, politically, I don't know where they're going with this. There are real problems that if they had real solutions to resolve, Republicans should be out there working on, like inflation, like the border. They don't have real solutions. They just want to demagogue and try to paint Biden as a criminal, which they will not be able to do successfully.
But I think
the American people want results.
But I think that outside of this case, it's almost like another needle in the haystack of questions and really skepticism growing around the FBI. Don't you think, Cal?
Yes, well, you also have the situation admitted by President Biden that he effectively told the one of the chief prosecutors had to go in Ukraine, or they wouldn't get foreign aid. They wouldn't get help from the United States taxpayers. So I think that's a problem as well. And you talk about the 2016 election, and if more had been known, then Trump wouldn't have won that election. Well, we can go to 2020 and say if the Hunter Biden laptop information had not been out there sufficiently, had not been censored by social media, the New York Post a tremendous story.
Chris doesn't like that, Cal. Chris doesn't like that. He's shaking his head
yeah,
no.
Well, why am I not surprised? Then the election results would be different then. So let's get it all out there. Let the voters decide, and let's have media fairness on this. Because they've been part of the cover-up as well.
20 seconds. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.